We got some good and bad news about Dragon's Dogma 2, although to be fair, it's mostly positive news because we learned way more thanks to recent previews. From amazing features that make the open world feel alive to super dynamic combat encounters where even your own party can be turned against you, there is a lot to go over, so let's go. And one thing that really got me hyped is the fact that there are real consequences to your actions, which can sometimes even radically alter the outcome of a quest. In their first preview, IGN noted a pretty standard sounding quest of someone who had lost their son to a pack of wolves and asked the player to go and find them, which they eventually did. That quest became much more interesting when IGN's second preview noted that they'd found the remains of the boy inside of a cave as they had ignored the quest for too long, which pretty realistically resulted in them failing. I don't think this will be true for every quest, as it seems like pretty much everyone and their mom has something for you to do when you enter a new town, but if a quest does sound kind of pressing, it's probably smart to give that one priority. Especially considering the devs have mentioned that your actions can change the relationship you have with certain NPCs as well. So in this example, I can't imagine the father being too happy he hired the Arisen to go and save his son. Some quests also require you go out into the dark, like this one where you have to follow a trail of flowers that glow during the night. And you really want to plan ahead for any adventure, but especially ones in the dark, as the game of course has very few means of fast travel, meaning you can get stuck out in the wild with no way to recover your health and other resources. You are able to find campfires where you can rest, and you can also cook some of the various meats you can harvest from certain enemies so you can later consume them for health and stat boosts. And fun fact about cooking, the footage you're seeing is actually live action, which was a clever way for the team to save time and resources on rendering the animations while still making cooking look really good. So great news for camping enthusiasts, although if you're more of a city person, you'll be happy to know that you can also buy property in some of the towns and villages. There's no footage of this or other info, we just know that it's in the game, and while we can't customize our house, we did learn that NPCs will be able to visit you at your place. But even when out exploring the world, you're never alone in Dragon's Dogma 2 thanks to the Pawn Companion system, which is sounding better with each preview as we keep learning about new features that make your AI buddies look even more useful. We of course know they're a vital part of combat, with some of them even strong enough to topple an enemy, which in this case neatly exposes the weak spot on the foot of the golem the player is fighting. And you might have already seen this in earlier footage, but you can show your appreciation for the squad by giving them a high five after combat to let them know they did a good job. But even outside of combat, pawns will make your adventure much more enjoyable. Sadly, there's no footage of this, but one player noted that encumbrance was an issue after picking up too many items, but luckily their pawns were able to carry stuff for them. Another one cut a rope bridge which left them unable to proceed, but after asking their pawn to assist, the party wizard just floated up and dropped a ladder down so the rest of the squad could continue. But as I said in the intro, your companions can also be turned against you, as some enemies like drakes possess the power to charm pawns to do their bidding. So now instead of simply fighting a dragon, you are fighting a dragon and your party mage. And the game is full of these wild dynamic encounters where you think you're having a regular battle and suddenly bam, a griffin shows up and now you have to deal with that too. This even extends into the game's different towns and settlements, as some monsters will chase you down relentlessly and don't really care if you seek shelter inside of a town. Should you lead a pack of monsters into a place where people live, they will react accordingly, with some running away in terror and some taking up arms to help you out. And even if you decide to do so at night, the villagers will wake up and respond to the threat. But you do want to be careful with this, as NPCs can actually die in Dragon's Dogma 2, including ones that might be essential for a quest. When that happens, their body will be taken to a morgue where you still have a chance to resurrect them with a special item, but after a few days they'll disappear from there too. And it's details like this that really help sell the world as something that's alive and reacts to what you do. Villagers will also respond if you enter a town with your weapons drawn, and while there's no footage of this, one previewer even accidentally interrupted a ritual in a secluded location, which ended up with them being ganged up on by guards and ending up in jail. So that's definitely not something you want to do, and we'll of course have tons of tips and tricks on the channel to avoid these mistakes when the game launches. So subscribe to not miss those and leave a like if you enjoyed the video so far. But yeah, the game has a ton of features and gameplay mechanics that help you truly immerse yourself into the fantasy world, although if I'm being honest, the most exciting part of Dragon's Dogma 2 is still the combat for me. It will probably take some getting used to, as most action RPGs take the Souls-like approach of a close camera and a lock-on system to make sure you always stay on target. But Dragon's Dogma 2 has no hard lock-on, meaning you have to manually keep keep track of your targets. Luckily, most of them are pretty big in this game, so that won't be too much of a problem. The game could still employ a soft lock-on system where pushing your stick towards an enemy will direct your attacks towards them, like Ghost of Tsushima did for example. But from looking at the footage, I think Dragon's Dogma 2 is more like Monster Hunter, which means you are responsible for your attacks hitting. And again, that will take some getting used to, but it's a type of combat system that becomes very satisfying once you get the hang of it. And thanks to the different classes, or vocations as the game calls them, that are available to you, I don't think combat will get boring anytime soon either. Because again, like Monster Hunter, each class's mechanics could be the toolset for an entire game, but in Dragon's Dogma 2 you have multiple and can swap between them at will. To give you an example, let's take a look at the magic archer, who, as you might have guessed, uses a combination of magic and bow and arrow techniques to take down foes. Your arrows are homing and you can swap between a larger reticule to multi-lock onto multiple foes, or a smaller, more focused one that allows you to quickly lock on multiple arrows to a single weak point. If you need even more precision, you can manually direct more powerful arrows mid-flight, and then you also have a ton of special abilities to add to the mix. These range from special elemental arrows to remedy arrows that can heal you and your allies, and the situational but potentially very powerful ricochet seeker that bounces all over the place. Not too great in open spaces, but they can absolutely melt a nasty creature that gets to jump on you in a cavern, for example. And again, that's just a single class. So far there are 10 confirmed vocations, with each offering the same amount of depth and variety in their kit. So it'll be really hard to pick a favorite, but again, you can freely swap between these, and the Warfarer vocation will let you mix and match skills and weapons from different vocations to create a truly unique playstyle as well. And while you can't take direct control of your party members, your pawns of course have vocations as well to cover for your weaknesses or to make you even stronger. One neat trick returning from the previous game is spell syncing, where multiple casters can team up to decrease the casting time of powerful spells. So even if you plan on playing a sorcerer, it might be worth it to add a second one to your team to make use of this feature. And there's also a mysterious disease called Dragon's Plague that can affect your pawns, which we learned from a PlayStation blog post. Initially this will make them stronger and bolder, but the later stages of the disease are rumored to result in devastating calamity. So you want to keep a close eye on your party to check if anyone's behaving a little different from their usual self. And if, like me, all of this info got you hyped to play right now, you can already download the game's character creator and make your player character and main pawn regardless of your platform. And the tools you have at hand allow for a ridiculous amount of customization, with the addition of the Beastren as a playable race giving you even more options. So since you can easily get lost in this character creator for hours, it's honestly smart to already get this out of the way so you can get straight to playing on launch day. The community has already been cooking up some crazy creations, and what's even cooler is that all those have a chance to show up in your game as pawns you can recruit. So there is a small chance that you get to recruit Shaggy or Bully Maguire to your roster, which makes looking for new pawns extra exciting. Now so far I've been very positive about the game, but I did say there was also bad news in the intro, and that mostly has to do with the game's performance. We did learn the game will run with an uncapped frame rate and no option being present to pick between a capped performance or quality mode. While playing on an older demo build, IGN reported that they sat around the 31 frames per second for most of their playtime. Bear in mind that the demo builds are not representative for the final product, so things can change, but if you were hoping to play the game in 60 FPS on consoles, I don't think that's going to happen. But the biggest problem, turns out, is actually the lack of a frame rate cap. As explained by Digital Foundry's John Linneman, a poorly paced 30 frames per second will make the game look much worse than when it's capped at 30 and is mostly hitting the target. VRR can in theory help with this, but because this feature works differently on Xbox and PlayStation consoles, it's mostly the visuals on Sony's console that will suffer from this uncapped frame rate. Again, take all of this with a grain of salt as it's based on a preview build, but I'd say considering which platform you play Dragon's Dogma 2 on is more important than it is with other games. The worst news though is that as of the making of this video, we have to wait more than a full week before we can finally get our hands on this long-awaited sequel. And we'll of course be making a ton of tips and tricks when Dragon's Dogma 2 launches, so subscribe to miss nothing, leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and watch our previous one with more info on the game's classes and enemies by clicking on the screen. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.